The level of certainty that I had when someone first said to me, you know, UK is one of the most brainwashed populations in the world. The level of certainty I had that that wasn't true was a level of certainty that I don't want to experience again. It's not it's not right to have that level of certainty about anything when we're born into a world of so many lies. And it's very healthy and very good for your mental health to go through a process where you realize you've been lied to about everything. Um, and when you don't realize that, the opposite is the case. People that believe that they've always been told the truth by their institutions, by their establishment, by their government, they are very insecure. It's very difficult to talk to them. They don't have an intellectual grasp of anything they think. It's always the repetition of a narrative that they don't really understand. And as a consequence, they are very insecure. Um, I don't think I was that insecure, but I'm certainly much more confident as a person now that I understand truth. Truth has a special quality to it. Um, Understanding that what we've been told, what I was told growing up in the UK, the cultural mythos from what we're told about history, what we're told about the present, and what we're told they're going to be doing in the future. Understanding that it's not true and going through the emotional, coping with that emotionally it's so good for you. And I think that part of the psyop is they make people feel insecure and they tell you that if you get something wrong, then you must be an idiot. And I think that makes people reluctant to correct themselves, because if you're an idiot for being wrong, then there's no correction mechanism. And that's another lie that they tell us. You've got to always be prepared to self-correct and don't get married to your ideas. Don't have this emotional attachment to ideas. You know, if you arrive at your conclusions logically, then you will be able to understand where you went wrong if you're wrong, and you can learn from it. But if you've only got an emotional attachment to an idea, it's very hard to decouple that relationship. So I would encourage people in the UK to remember that it is absolutely true that you do come from a culture that is highly propagandized. And the propaganda didn't start when you started to realize you were being lied to about vaccines or whatever it was that you realized you're being lied to about. The entire culture, going back to the glorious or inglorious revolution of 1688, ever since then, since we've been run by the European banking dynasties, has been a lie. And our institutions are just used to keep us suppressed, down, lacking in confidence, insecure, misinformed, and that's a population they can control, and of course divided. So if you're consuming content in the UK that is along the premise of left-wing people and right-wing people, and this party is better than that party, my advice is, if you want to find out if you want to get closer to where the truth actually lies, start with what the government would call conspiracies and go all in. And it won't all be true, but at least you'll be closer to where the truth lies. Because if you're consuming left-wing content and right-wing content, this kind of slop that I used to consume, you're not going to get even close to truth, and it will help you so much. It's not going to be any kind of magic answers to what you should do, but it will help you so much with regard to your mental health. You'll understand why people are the way they are. You'll understand why governments do what they do, why they lie the way they do. And it also, more than anything else, it makes for such a much more fascinating world and a fascinating life. It is more interesting, and you don't get so wound up because you understand why it is the way it is, and you also see how you were tricked as well. And it's not a big deal to be tricked because we're dealing with people that have hundreds of years of inherited institutional knowledge, statecraft, and the ability to understand and manipulate populations. So if they want to psyop you, they're going to psyop you. It doesn't mean that you should feel bad about it. It's all of us. So I recommend start looking into some conspiracies. Don't forget, they only call it conspiracies because it's anti their regime. You know, truth would always be called a conspiracy when it's against the regime. That's a universal. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. These things are much more universal than we realize. And we're basically in a 350-year-old empire that they say is just the country they sell it to us as. But when you realize what they're doing and how they treat their people, look, one of the big Achilles heels, I think, of the British situation for the people is the idea that I cannot overstate how little the ruling elite, the oligarchical class, which operates above government, how little they care about you. Like this idea that it's we. Like if let's imagine we go to a war, for example. We go to war with Russia. And they say we. It's not we as far as they're concerned. Our lives matter no more or less than a Russian life to them. We are absolutely nothing. And when you understand that and you can see who they are and how it works, as I say, it's much better for your mental health, and you can plan better. Because I don't know, depending on your age, but this century is going to be the first half of this century, the next 20 years are going to be like nothing we've ever seen. And if you're watching left wing versus right wing slop, you're going to not be prepared for it. How are you going to know how to invest? How are you going to know which countries are viable countries to live in? How are you going to know survival skills? How are you going to learn about how, just as an example off the top of my head, go into countries that are a bit more corrupt? Because when you've got global authoritarianism, it's going to be better in countries where you can perhaps pay some money to the authorities instead of a country like the UK or New Zealand, where they will just do what they're told no matter what. Little things like that, people need to prepare themselves for. And you're not going to do it if you're watching left-wing versus right-wing slop, which is what I see 80% of the people on the internet doing. And, you know, it might be, maybe you're someone that just can't get out of that dialectic. But if you can manage to read some sort of classic books, like John Coleman's Committee of 300 is a very good start. It's only a PDF that you can read on the internet, or listen to some better quality podcasts. I think in the UK, if you're from the UK, the best content that I see is Academic Agent from the UK. I think he's excellent. He's very educational, and it would be a good start if what you're doing at the moment is only left-wing versus right-wing slop. Anyway, I'm going to call it a day, and see you soon.